I think we're live.
All right, we are live. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alex Martinez from Creating Coding Careers, where we help aspiring developers transition into ServiceNow and web development roles. Today's guest speaker has been in the ServiceNow space for about 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. And more specifically, she is a genius at the ITBM/SPM space. I want to give a big welcome and shout out to Etta Wilson. Etta, thank you for joining us today. The first thing we like to do is ask our guests to share that pivotal moment when they came across this thing called ServiceNow. Can you think back when you first were told of what it was and how you became a service, your first steps into ServiceNow?
Before we do this, because I'm gonna jump off and just absorb all this knowledge. So before we let Etta jump into that, I want to first again say thank you for gracing us with your presence. I am fortunate enough to call Etta a mentor and truly do learn just a wealth of information about the ecosystem from this human being who so graciously gives her time to help not only me, but a ton of other people that are trying to break into this field. So thank you very much, Etta. And I'm going to jump out so that you can share, kick knowledge with these gentlemen. And again, thank you. Oh, so much.
Oh, absolutely. And at some point before this conversation is over, I want to also address how we ended up even knowing each other.
Yeah.
Because that is an important message.
Tell that story, please.
Okay.
All right. Enjoy.
Bye. he really did just go out.
He's here with us. Yeah. So let us know, how did you get into ServiceNow? And let us know that origin story, please.
So here's what happened. I was at CareFusion, and I got to CareFusion because I had spent some time taking care of my mother who had Lou Gehrig's disease, and I needed to get back to work because basically they said she was going to pass away in 2 years, and she was like, I am not going anywhere. So I went back to work. So I was at CareFusion. We were on PlanView, and my boss came in and he's like, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is, bad news is we're not going to renew our subscription to PlanView. The good news is we want you to bring us to ServiceNow. And I thought, the service desk? And at that time, they really did not have, there wasn't even a WBS. There was nothing. So I'm like, okay, you can either complain about it or you can help. And oh, by the way, you have 11 weeks to get into production because the fiscal year starts in July. So that's how I ended up on the platform. I was at CareFusion for 5 years, I think it was. There was an acquisition that happened. We got purchased by Beck & Dickinson. And they had decided that there were pieces of the platform that they were not going to use. But by then, I had already fallen in love with the platform. Because here's the thing that people don't realize. Everybody talks about having resource capacity planning. But if all the work isn't in one platform, then you end up like creating projects for enhancements, creating projects for incident. Like you really don't have a full of here's unplanned work, here's incident and problem, here's defined work, here's the catalog, here's planned work, here's project tasks and story. To find out that there was a whole platform, I thought, oh my goodness, I hit a gold mine. It's like, yes, I'm going to work with this. So that's how I initially got on the platform. And then when BD decided that they were only going to use parts of the platform and they were doing layoffs, because acquisitions have layoffs, and they told me no, I made the decision October of 2015 that I was going to quit my job and start gNIS. So I started gNIS. We're in the first year, and I'm looking for people with IT. At that time, I think it may have even still been Project Portfolio Suite. And then it became ITBM, and now it's SPM. What was happening is you could find amazing developers on the platform. And I was already working with a developer that I'd been with from the very beginning. But we couldn't find anybody with SPM experience. And the ITM developers wanted all this money, but you didn't know anything about project. You know nothing. And that's when I was already tracking. At the time, you guys were San Diego Code School. I was already tracking you going, okay, well, wait a minute. if I could get good developers, even if they're younger in their career, I will teach you ITBM. And that's really what happened. And so my goal was to grow gNIS through what is now San Diego Coding Careers. So there we go. There's my short answer. Actually, that was pretty long, but there it was.
And so when you met up with Mike, I think you just mentioned earlier, he presented you two very smart developers, and that was Eric Dalmau and Laurel Kelly.
Yes.
And so I had the privilege of interviewing them as well last year. Very smart people. They've moved on to become senior ServiceNow developers now, all because of you. So you created this beautiful on-ramp for them, an incubator almost, to incubate their skills for about a year, and off they went. And look at them now. Actually, Eric is here with us today. He's giving you a shout out. He says, "Hey, Etta, great to hear you speak." So Eric, yep, and I'm sure Laurel's in here also. So that being said, I'm sure you had a lot of experience hiring people. And I'm curious, what do you look for when you're adding to your team? Like, what kind of skills are popping out that would wow you to say, you know what, I want this person to be on my team?
Yeah.
I got to be honest. It's your ability to want to learn, because it's a grind. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
Exactly. Yep.
If you are in it to learn, I will come to the table and teach you. What I won't do is chase after you and babysit you. I'm not your babysitter.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I am amazed at the number of people that feel like, oh, this is going to come off so wrong, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I'm amazed at the number of people in the ecosystem that feel like I have to chase you. I'm not chasing you. I'm giving you the opportunity to learn the platform. I'm giving you the resources you need to learn the platform. But I'm not one of them begging females. Oh, did I say that? Yeah, I did.
Speaking of resources, I actually have a question for you really quickly. What are your recommendation? What are your recommended prerequisites, or pre-knowledge before somebody would dive into, SPM or ITBM, whatever they name it.
Yes.
But before they dive into that, what would you recommend?
So there is a book out there, and we can get this to everyone. It's on Lulu. It costs $5.99, but it's IT Financials. And here's why you want this. Okay. At the beginning of a fiscal year, companies come up with budgets that they want to spend for the year. They already have developed their strategic plan for the next 3 to 5 years. So every year they come in, they have their strategic plan. What are we going to do for the next fiscal year? Right? You need to understand how the money flows. Because if you think about this, if we didn't have to track the money, we wouldn't have to do time cards. I know many of you are on your jobs doing time cards. They're doing the time cards so we can decide what assets can we capitalize on and which ones we can't. And so that book is really good at explaining. So I have a group of females that I'm working with now. And the first thing I told them, okay, we need to get that one. The second part of this, so think about this. All enterprises, doesn't matter what they do, you ask, what do you do? I'll tell you guys a cute little story. So we were in Sam's Club with my father, and he's there, he's got his suit jacket on and his little hat. And some guy comes out of nowhere and he's like, what do you do? What do you do? And my father's looking at him like, what are you talking about? And then he says, I'm an actor. Now, my father he's in his 80s now. He was an actor. There are millions of actors that have regular jobs. So no movie star, right? But a regular actor. But when I started doing this and learned about business architecture and business capabilities, that really is the very beginning of what we're really doing. Because until you can define what an enterprise does any of the rest of it matter? Because people are asking you for pieces, but if you don't know what do you do, You're just taking stuff in. So there's a book, Wendy Clune, it's called Strategy to Reality. So we got strategy to reality to get you on the strategy side to start to think about, what do you do? Like, what does an organization do? And then you've got that IT financial one, because now that I know what do I do, then it's like, how do I pay for it?
Mhm.
If you think about it, that, and then everything else is in between. So here's what I ended up doing at gNIS. And Laurel and Eric were an amazing part of this, especially because what happened with gNIS, we were too small. We could not get traction. But I had these prescriptive solutions, and it was about, how do you intake work, right? Then you intake it. The business says, I want to do this. You use that piece of, what do? You use your business capabilities. What business capability am I aligning to? Do I have a business capability already? If I do, what application is it? If I don't, then I move on. Then I assess it. Okay, I'm going to score it. I'm going to prioritize it against all the rest of the stuff. And then when I'm done, I'm going to decide, okay, we're going to do this. Then I'm going to go request my funding. That's when I'll go back to, like, you need to know how the money flows. Exactly. Yes, I need $1.5 million for this project. Will you give it to me? Okay, give me all the details. Okay, yeah. Oh, that sounds like a great idea. I'm going to get some benefits back from it. Okay, I'll give you $1.5 million. Then you go to execute it. There's where Scrum comes in. I know there are tons of lovely methodologies and frameworks across the board. Here's what I always tell people. If you are just starting with your agile mind, just do Scrum. Don't go safe, all the rest of the little complicated ones. Just do Scrum. It'll get you there. You got a story. A story is a story is a story. People are, oh, is a story an epic? Is a story a feature? No. A story is a story is a story. If a story is too big where you think it's an epic, split the story. Now I got 2 stories. There we go. Leave it as a story.
Yeah.
Then you go ahead and build it. And now I'm off to production. I deploy. So if you think about it, what ServiceNow is currently doing, and you're going to start to hear this, they call them capabilities. They are business capabilities. And you're going to start to hear about value streams. So IT for IT came up with these value streams for unplanned work, incident and problem, define work, and then planned work. There's actually 2 for planned work. I think it's strategy to portfolio and requirement to deploy. I combined them and went strategy to deploy. That's the value stream. And then what I did is brought it down a level. I intake work, I assess work, I execute work, and I deploy work. Beneath each of those value streams are your business capabilities. So within, I intake work. I need ideation. I need demand. I need portfolio. So it really goes down to little pieces. So if you shift our technical mind really to the left, to the business for a minute, and you get the business part back, I can always map back to the technology. What gets hard as us, as technology people, we want a solution from the technology side, and it will fail you every time. Because the business doesn't know what you're talking about. They have no idea. They're just looking at you like, huh? I don't know.
Yeah, people don't know how important it is to articulate the problem at hand, and that's the thing. Like a lot of people, I was trying to get. I actually have a couple people from my pod in here, so shout out to you guys. We were talking about agile development and how important it is to be able to articulate that, and use and actually utilize, the tools of agile development. And like you said, starting with Scrum, just building your way up from there. So if you can just kind of elaborate on the importance of that, in the industry.
So absolutely. So here's what I would tell everybody. The Scrum framework was updated, I want to say 1.5 years, 2 years ago. Got all excited and everything. But if you look at Scrum, story is not included in the Scrum framework. It's actually part of another framework. But what I tell people, start with the story, because the story is the end user's way of telling you what they want from a business user perspective. So don't go in on the technology side at all. Ask them, what do you do today? That's really where you start, because they know what they do today. Like, and what happens even when, we're doing these implementations was like, oh, well, do you use the ideation portal? Do you use demand? They have no idea what that is, but they do know, how do you intake project work? So when you're taking a look at a story, you're asking them back to, what do you do? They know what they do. Let them tell you what they do and listen to what they do. And then what I always do is I say, oh, this is what we ask you. So this is what we ask. This is what we heard. Because then there's that, you said this is what I heard. Are we on the same level? I will tell you, a lot of times we are not. The business and technology, we are not. So I've gotten in the habit of, you tell us what you do, and then I'm going to come back and say, here's what I heard you said you do. Did I get it right?
Yep.
And then I can go and write a really good user story, because you're telling them, oh, I need it in this format. As a this, I need to do this because of that. They have no idea what that is. Don't even put that on them. Ask them, what do you do? And you say, okay, this is what I heard. And then you write the user story for them. And you come back and say, am I close? And if not, then you adjust it. You adjust it until you can get to where, oh, this is what you were really trying to tell me. But if you try to impose the technology side to them, it will not be a good outcome every time. And by the way, for me, that took me, it was 3 years ago when I started learning about business architecture that I realized at gNIS, we were inflicting our technology pain on our business customers. We're there to help them. We're all excited about it. And they're looking at us like, we have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Not a clue.
And that's what bridges the gap, right? ITBM.
That is.
And that's the thing. So yeah. Shout out to Pod One also, just by the way. I see you guys are also in here. So thank you guys for joining in.
Yeah, by the way, Ed, I don't know if I formally introduced you to Deontay. So Deontay was one of our apprentices over here at Creating Coding Careers. He shot through the curriculum, ended up becoming a TA over at ServiceNow, where he has been a TA for, I think, 2 pods or two cohorts. Yeah. And now he's joining us back at Creating Coding Careers starting Monday. And he will be my co-host moving forward. So I'm happy to have him. Welcome, Deontay. I appreciate you being here too, man.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for that.
Nice.
So Etta, so it sounds like you're echoing what you mentioned on Callie's podcast. So shout out to Callie. I think I saw Callie in here as well. Callie asked you, what are your superpowers? And it sounds like listening seems like that's your superpower. You got to listen to the customer. You got to listen, understand what their pain points are. Can you walk us through a specific example? You don't have to say the name of the company, but maybe like a company's coming to you with these pain points and how you not only listen, but use your second superpower of persuasion to create some kind of solution for them using ServiceNow?
So yes. So when you get onto the calls with the customers, sometimes we always do what's called a reverse demo. And I do the reverse demos before I ever show you what's in ServiceNow. And the reason why we do that is if you get a customer that is in pain, the opportunity to go into ServiceNow and you're demoing and showing them the shiny objects, then they start to solution for you. And so one of the things that I do is I have them first reverse demo, and then we start to talk about that. I know where I need you to land. Then comes in the listening, you're hearing where they're at. Here's where the power of persuasion comes in. It's the gap analysis in between and the guiding and the storytelling as you're going, well, what about this? Well, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh, I like that. It's like, okay. It's like, okay, now suppose we could do this. And da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And everybody gets excited. And what just happened was I took you from your current pain through a process that now lands you where the prescriptive solution that we had developed over the last 7 years. And by the way, Eric and Laurel were really key in that, because at the time, we were still trying to get traction. We didn't have a customer. I was like, okay, everybody's on payroll. Let's just get this done. Right. So they know a lot about this as well, because they helped to build it. But it really is that we know where we need them to land. I need you to be on the happy path. And I don't know if anybody's seen the happy path diagrams. If you haven't, we can get that out to everyone. I need a baseline for you to start with, and back to intake work, assess it, execute it, deploy it. I need you to start there, use the platform for a while, then let's go do some detailed workshops. I don't want to do workshops ever again with people in pain, because that's just, they don't budge real well, and they fight, and then they tell on me, and they argue, and just all kinds of stuff.
We got a question from go ahead, Deontay.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say, I know we were talking before. She said, I don't want to, don't come to me, trying to make your pain, trying to fix your pain and make it, bring it to ServiceNow. And I just thought about that. That's funny.
No, you cannot shift. You can't lift and shift.
Yeah.
And what happens is we talk to our customers. We're like, what do you need? Instead of, I'll say, traditionally, we're consultants. We come in, what do you need? And then they say, well, what do you have? And then we start showing them all the shiny objects. And of course they say, oh my gosh, I want that. That's beautiful. They say that because they're in pain. They have no idea at the time, because they don't know what it's like to not be in pain. And it took us the first 2 years of gNIS to figure that out. It was like, man, we're doing this all wrong. And it was a gentleman, his name is John Akins. He's the one that basically taught me, stop doing that crawl, walk, run, fly thing. Okay. You're the expert in this industry. How about you sell full cars? Stop selling car parts. Stop selling, you crawl, you walk, you run, you fly. It's like, no. Here's a car, open the door up. You don't want them opening the door up, sitting in the seat going, where's the driving wheel? Oh man, that's next phase. It's like, well, how much does drive the car? He's also the one that taught me these repeatable processes. So once we got the solution together, he was like, okay, you got to repeat this 3 times. And once we had it repeated 3 times, then that's what Laura and Eric and Jody Ann and Shashank were helping with. And Jay was, let's get this documented. And from now on, this is what we're going to present. We had 5 solutions. These are our 5 solutions. Let us demo to thee. Do you like these? This is where we want you to start. This is going to cost you this much. All of them were less than 12 weeks. I need you to start here. You start to use it. And then once you use it for 12 weeks, then let's come back and go, how do you like it? But solutioning from pain, I got to tell you, and I never realized this from the consulting standpoint, we've been solutioning from pain the entire time. And then we want to know why the customers are mad at us when stuff doesn't come out the way they wanted to, because they were in pain.
Got a question coming from the crowd here. This is from another ServiceNow guru, Philip Swan. He's asking, what do you think about story writing not being the problem as much as story listening? Hearing the customer describe their plan and converting it into stories is part of the big picture / narrative.
But I tell you what to do. So you said something there. When they're describing your pain, you're not initially writing the story from their pain. Do the reverse demo and get that pain piece out. First of all, don't show them ServiceNow, because remember, if you do that, then you're going to be competing with them on solutioning. There's that piece.
Yeah.
Get their current pain based on what they're doing. Then you take some time and go, okay, how would this map into ServiceNow? What would this really look back? And so what I do is, okay, here's what we asked you. So here's what we asked. Here's what we heard. Make sure that what you ask and what you heard are actually the same thing.
Mhm.
Then write the story together. And you'll find out that'll go a lot easier. Because they really don't, it's not that they don't know. The thing is, they know their current business process. They don't realize there's any other business process that could be improved.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But then if you show them ServiceNow, man, they get all kinds of ideas. You're in pain. You're like, oh my gosh, look at that. That'll work. That'll be amazing. In reality, it's not going to be amazing for you. We're not going to lift and shift for you. It's like, that's not how this is supposed to work.
Yeah.
So Etta, for some of us, we got a lot of people in here that are coming for our apprentice program, our pre-apprentice program. They either just barely learning ServiceNow or just got their CSA. Stepping one step further from the CSA, what would you recommend them as far as maybe what areas should they start with after getting their CSA? What certificates or what areas?
So Robert just did a piece where it was wide or deep, right? Mm-hmm. Remember, he was talking about, do you learn ServiceNow wide or do you learn ServiceNow deep? And the recommendation is deep, then wide. Here's why. You cannot, it is way too big to be an expert wide across the platform.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
So here's my recommendation. Because a lot of people, and I didn't know this, you don't have access to some of the pre-sales and sales training on Now Learning. But what you do have access to, so Utah is here. Now, why in the world we changed from cities to states? Only ServiceNow knows that. But go into the release notes and go back to Rome, because you're upgrading from Rome to Utah.
Yep. And
do the consolidated one. And it's going to give you a big old list of now all of the applications and everything on the platform. And really take some time and go through. So even though it's only giving you the diff of, okay, here's from Rome to Utah, it'll give you a flavor of what the platform is about. And then what you do is say, okay, ooh, I kind of like this. I kind of like the security thing, or I kind of like the HR thing. And of course, I personally think you all should all like the SPM thing, but that's just me. But find your initial niche on the platform.
Yeah.
And then go investigate the business side of it by industry, because there's the other part. Learn that and then go wide. What a lot of people don't know about me is, yes, first, I was the PPM lady because that was PPM at the time. Now I'm the SPM lady. But what they don't realize is that I can go wide across the platform because, think about this, if you never had an idea that became a demand, and in demand, I needed hardware and software, now I'm touching ITAM, HAM, and SAM, and procurement to receive in the assets with all the financial pieces.
Life cycle.
And then to bring on application portfolio management, right? To then do CSDM, like it all goes together. So where people think, oh, she's just SPM, it's like, no, you need to have another conversation with me. Now, what I don't do well, and yes, is it the right hand you're supposed to do? I think it is. Right? Left.
Yep,
I'll just put them both up. We can keep HR. Somebody else can go perfect that. I'm out of that. No, that's not going to be my wheelhouse. Now, the integration to bring in the people so I get my resource plans and all the rest of them good, but they're there. But I have done everything from customer service because we needed it for Community Connect. There are hospital systems that use Epic that have smaller practices that can't afford Epic, so they extend their Epic instance to those companies. We actually developed a solution at gNIS for them to be able to onboard that. And so go through those release notes so you can find, and even if you go in and do a top 5, because I feel at this point, it feels like there's like a billion areas in there now. It's a pretty big list. But find 5 and just go through. And if you can, go on Now Learning and get those pieces. If not, go to the release notes of those applications and just go through it and find out what is going to be your favorite part of the platform, because you cannot be an expert on the entire platform. Not possible. And if somebody tells me differently, I'm just going to say Merry Christmas to you and Happy New Year. Yeah.
I love that.
You have to. Oh my gosh, there's too much there. You are aware of it. And so here's the thing. So as a partner, and I'm hoping someday they open this up, I have to do my deltas on every release. And when you're a partner, you get points so that you can get to different levels. So I have my deltas that I do so that I'm aware of all the things across the platform. But there is no way I could be an expert on everything on the platform. I wouldn't even try.
Yeah.
But what I do know to be true, if you talk about anything on SPM, and it's mainly because of the amount of time. I mean, I've been here 10 years.
Yeah.
Could I be missing some things? Maybe. It happens. But not a whole lot.
So I love how you said that. You said dive, go deep, and then go wide, right? So this is after you have your CSA. That's what she recommends. Hit those documentation, that documentation up.
Yeah. Like I said, use the release notes. Go in and do the Rome to Utah, and then do the combine. It's going to give you a big old list of like everything on the platform, and go through and just read the deltas. The nice thing is they're short and sweet because, each of them are part of a larger one. And if there's something that entices you, like, oh, I like that, document that and pick 5. Then go do a little bit of a deeper dive and then find what's your niche going to be on the platform. And it could be a couple. It just so happens with SPM, because of how wide it is. It's ideation, demand, project, investment, financials. They kicked APM out, but I'm going to keep APM because there's something special about her. There's the agile, there's all of it. It just so happens that SPM had so many, but because they all go together as a unit, there's my piece. Right.
I love that. And then just one question too, for those that are like, I know there's a lot in this chat looking for developer roles and looking to pursue roles like that. What developer roles have you came across under the umbrella of SPM? I know there's a few.
So, well, there is that developer role. I mean, because I'll give an example that we're getting ready to go through. So think about this. A project comes in, and we take a look at it, and we need to decide, do you have the requirements to be able to go to the next phase? Okay. Out of the box, it doesn't exist. So now I need to build some approval process at the milestones of the project. There's one. Here's another one. And this is, I think maybe if ServiceNow hears me say this enough, we'll get this fixed. And Robert also knows this. When we talk about, is my asset capitalizable? Like, can I, take the asset, capitalize it in service and depreciate the asset? ServiceNow currently does not do that at the task level for all work types. So as a developer, what I do, because I don't want to produce the wheel again. We already have that cost piece on there already when the drop down is CapEx OpEx. I bring that to the task table, and I know people don't want to touch the task table, but my whole thing is if it impacts more than 5 tables, it needs to be there. On this one, what's important about it, it impacts all work types on the entire platform. When you do a time card, Your work is either OpEx or CapEx. You default it to OpEx because most of the work is operational. Incident is operational, problem in the project, only things where you're adding value to the asset, and finance tells you what that is. But it's like, okay, put that on the task table. There's the development piece there. And then you extend it to the time cards. So then when you process your time cards, when it writes to the expense line, you now have a task that you've reported time to that is either CapEx and OpEx against your project, and it rolls up into the platform. No harm, no foul. So it really is those pieces. And the other thing that I encourage developers to do, once you decide your initial niche, get down into that code and understand how it works. And the reason why I say that, it's evolved over time, especially on SPM. There are so many little Lego blocks in there that I just put them to the side, because remember, we're learning the business process. So we know, what do you do? And then you go in and you start to look at the business rules. It's like, okay, what is this doing? Here's another good one. When you process time cards out of the box, once a time card is approved, it automatically processes it. But for most organizations, they do their time tracking on a monthly basis. You take that business rule, stick it out to a scheduled job, then you run it on the month. That gives people, because sometimes people put their time cards in wrong, then you don't have to worry about the recall function and all the rest of that. So it's, once you learn your niche, get into the business rules, the script includes, get into that and understand what's there and map it to the business process. That way, when you're in the workshops talking to the people, you know the business process, and now you can map the business back to the technology. So you know what's going to map.
Because you know those developer processes. Amazing.
You know those developer processes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I get a little excited and animated on this, but that is really the key.
I love it.
When I'm in workshops or running the workshops, sometimes people think I'm a little all over the place. They don't realize what I'm doing is filling the gaps. Like, I know where I need you to land. I'm asking you questions and filling in the gaps along the way. I'm like, oh, you tell me this. I'm like, that might not work. We got one recently. It was like, oh, you do things by analysts and developers. I was like, well, wait a minute. If your assignment group is developer, how do I know what application it is? Yeah. So
we have another question from the crowd. This is from one of our pre-apprentices. So Little Charles is a pre-apprentice, and what they do there is they go through the fundamentals of JavaScript, HTML, CSS, in preparation for going through our Merge stack. After they're done with our Merge stack, they go right into ServiceNow fundamentals. Little Charles is asking, so do we have to get into ServiceNow, Alex or Etta? Like, is it highly recommended or what? Just asking as a person trying to find their role in this coding process. So we were talking earlier about how hard it is to get into tech when you got a full-time job going on. So we have these pre-apprentices that are doing just that. They're working full-time jobs and they're coding at nights or on the weekends. Nice. And so he's asking, I believe the question is ServiceNow a great ecosystem to land my first role? And I believe there is such high demand that it absolutely is. And if you want to be a developer in ServiceNow, there's a home for you. If you want to be on the business side of things in ServiceNow, there's a home for you. You can find a home for yourself based on your skills and your likes and your wants. There's so many opportunities, so many directions you can go with this. Would you agree with that, Etta?
I would agree. It's an amazing ecosystem, and there is a shortage. And because it was up for a little bit, if he's on the development side and he's still learning JavaScript, does he know about Chuck's class? Chuck's JavaScript. Because here's the thing I always tell everybody. JavaScript's been around a while, different versions, ServiceNow has its own flavor of it. Yep. If you're going to commit to the ServiceNow ecosystem, you need to learn it the ServiceNow way. Yep. Chuck has a class out there. It's free. It's detailed. And we all know Chuck's amazing. I mean, he's
Absolutely.
He's amazing.
Him and his bow tie. Yeah. Amazing.
Yes, and his bow ties. And his absolute bow ties.
Yeah.
And so I would recommend that you start there. So if you decided that ServiceNow is your ecosystem and you're coming in on the developer side, yes, there are lots of JavaScript, even free ones, paid ones, this one's that one. Start with Chuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big
Start.
emphasis on like the ServiceNow JavaScript. I like how you
Yes.
put emphasis on that because there's, ServiceNow does have their own flavor. And if you don't learn how ServiceNow and the Glide system, works in ServiceNow, you can go learn, about, object-oriented coding, programming all day, and you'll come back to ServiceNow and nothing that you input into the script editor will work. So
Nothing will
I'm
work.
glad you put
Yeah,
that.
so you'll still have to
Glad you put-
relearn it. So the only thing
Yeah.
you did was pay a bunch of money and you still didn't get what you needed.
Exactly.
So for everybody else out there, if you have questions for Etta, please drop them into the comments. We'd be happy to ask her. I'm sorry, Etta, you were about to say something right now.
No, just this is good. Well, actually, the thing I was thinking about, and we can talk to Mike about this. We should develop a playbook.
Now that you're mentioning that, it's funny because Deontay and I we are going to be in charge of getting our pre-apprentices ready to go into the apprenticeship to get into the ServiceNow space. And now that you're mentioning Chuck Tomasi's JavaScript courses, we have to get that in, Deontay. It's like I'm taking notes over here saying, yeah we got to do that because we are teaching them JavaScript. But I think you and Deontay just hit the nail on the head. It's not the same as JavaScript in ServiceNow, and that's something that I think we got to start doing, Deontay. So that's going to be on our agenda.
You still the base, because here's the thing. You want people to be able to evolve, and most can't. I mean, everything's it's all tech, it's all this. It's really not. Somebody gives you enough love around you coding, you still need to get your base JavaScript. But when they say, there's an advance, there's this, it's like, no. Let's get the base on just here's what it is, and then bring them into Chuck, and then bring them into the platform.
Right.
And just make it because here's the nice thing. As you go along your journey of learning, you always have, and you guys will learn from me, there's a happy path for me for everything. I'm going to take the happy path initially. And for those who don't know what the happy path is, when you do testing, you test how it's supposed to work. Then I test the exceptions. What happens a lot of times is people get into testing and they're always testing the exceptions. Yeah. When we get into development, we get with customers, they want the exceptions. I'm like, how about we do the happy path? And let's get the happy path coded. Then we can come back and talk about your exceptions. But if I can't get a straight path on how this is supposed to work, I could be building code for exceptions for the next 10 years. I don't want to do that anymore. I did that when I was younger. No more.
And that's what the life cycle comes in, right, of projects and things like that, because we can track that and bring it back. So I love that. I actually have a question for you. Just for people, that are seeing hearing business administration and then they're hearing IT. I just wanted you to kind of elaborate. What is what is ITBM specifically, and how does it really differ from general business administration? Just business admin.
Okay, so let me see if I can answer that. So here's what happened with ServiceNow. They've gone through different names of the applications over the year.
Or SPM.
It started at PPM, Project Portfolio Management. Then it was Project Portfolio Suite. Then it was IT Business Management, which then confused everybody. Now it's Strategic Portfolio Management. Here's Etta's take on this. Okay. The business. Remember back to me with what do you do, right? What do you do? From what I do, I have certain business capabilities that I do with my business. I then, every 3 to 5 years, develop a strategic plan for what we do. And this is what I want to do. I want to increase sales by 20% in the next year. So when somebody says, oh, I have a project, you then take a look at, oh, will this increase my sales by 20% in the next year? And if it is, it's like, oh, that's a great idea. So I'm going to move that forward. So back to, remember, the intake of plan work. So I'm going to intake that in. I'm going to increase by 20%. Then I get into, I'm going to assess it. Okay, what resources am I going to need? What groups am I going to need on this project for me to increase by 20%? You get all the financials together. Okay, it's going to cost you $500,000, and I can give you your 20%, maybe not in the first year, but in the second year. But there are things on the platform to help you measure that. Then you say, the business is, okay, I'm going to give you $500,000 to do that. Then you execute the project. You go in, you build it out, you know, all the tasks, and you can be agile or waterfall, whatever you want to be. There we go. Build it out. Now that was execute. Now deploy. Raise my change control, and I'm off to production. And then at some point in time, I start to measure, did I get my value of saying, I'm going to get a 20% in my return? What happened along the way, it was always the business was over here and IT was over here. But in reality, IT is also a business. So it should have always been, we should have always been solutioning from the business. And that was something that I actually had to learn. So once I shifted left, I call it shift left to the business. And let's take a look. The concept is that business architecture. That's that book, you know, Strategy to Reality. Let's talk business, because IT is also a business. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was, yeah, definitely clarified it.
So, Ed, I want to follow along on your LinkedIn here, and I'm seeing you, once you sunsetted gNIS, you moved up. You are now over at GlideFast, the powerhouse in the ServiceNow industry. I'd love to hear what's that like, because I know you're surrounded by a lot of great minds over there. You got the mayor of ServiceNow over there, Mr. Lombardo. You got Callie over there now. So you got a great team. Sounds like you guys like the all-star team in ServiceNow. I'd love to hear what that's all like right now.
No, it's amazing. And so what we're currently doing is taking a look at our current processes, and then, you know, because of the success that we had at gNIS and some of those kind of solutions that we had, it's like, how do we implement some of those? But I don't know, like people on the call, if you're in transition to other jobs or all the rest of it, I will tell you something. From a company culture perspective, I've never seen anything like GlideFast. Yeah. Because we all have to work until we win the lotto, which I have not yet, right? It's like being in a group of technology people that are secure enough in their skill set that you don't get the jealousy thing, you don't get this. If you need help, you can reach out. It's just been amazing. It has absolutely been amazing. I've been on great projects, and I'm working projects. It's kind of like, you know, my title is, you know, technical practice lead. But if you think about this, in order to be a great leader, you must have receipts. You have to understand how the business runs. You have to be down and roll your sleeves up with everybody else to understand. You cannot be sitting up telling people what to do if you've never experienced the pain of what anybody's going through. Yeah. And so I just reached my 90 days. So I know, whole 90 days. It has been a little bit of an adjustment from a gNIS side because, you know, I ran gNIS. Yeah. But they've been amazing, you know, amazing management. Just
heard nothing but great things about that company over there. We have another question coming from the crowd here. It's from, I'm going to say, Chuck. So still on going deep and wide. As a project manager, do you recommend I go deep into PPM first, then other related applications? I find APM, CMDB, discovery, and service mapping. So is there a roadmap you can recommend for a project manager, or a niche you can recommend?
Oh, that's interesting. So if he's on there and he can reply back, so here's going to be my first question. Do you want to stay as a project manager, or do you want to move into the implementation of the project management applications and their surroundings? Because there's a difference, right? Being a project manager in this space, you're in the right piece. But let's say that you want to be able to move outside of project management and you want to implement what's in SPM. And so then that's where APM comes in. Here's another piece about APM. A lot of people didn't understand, before it kind of got kicked out of SPM, why it was there. But if you think about it, when a new idea comes in, the first thing you say, is this a duplicate of something that somebody else has already put in? And if it is, then you go in and say, this is a duplicate of what somebody else put in. Then you ask, do I have this business capability already? And if I do, what application it is? Because you're also kind of doing rationalization in ideation, because you don't want to bring on another application if you have the business capability in an application that you already own. And so you're able to ask that. So that's why I asked that question. And if it's in the project piece, then it really is a matter of going deep on how to manage projects through the different pieces. Like, how does ideation work? Here's how you're going to build your budget and demand. You're going to use the resource plans for your internal labor. You're going to use the cost plans for your external labor and your hardware, software, training, and any other thing. So you can get your budget, so you can go to finance and go, okay, I need, $1 million to do this project. And then you use what's in ServiceNow to be able to execute your project, and then you deploy your project. If it's on the other side, then you really do need to learn about what's going on with APM, and then just the different flavors of Agile. I've already stated this before. No offense to SAFe. I mean, it's a great framework. I'm cool with Scrum. So that's just, a personal preference. So that's why I asked that. Yes,
and you were saying,
want to stay and also move. So then, yes. So if that's the case, a couple things. In Now Learning, go up under certifications and do the PPM route, and then do the APM route, and then do the Agile route. That'll give you all three of them. And here's the nice thing. Because you have that project management background already, it's a smooth ride. Because you understand, remember back to me, always on the business. So many of us as technologists, we have no idea what's going on the business side. We think we do, and we get in there. And business tells us something, and we go, oh, okay, we write it down. And then we go implement their pain, back to the pain, where if we understood the business side of it, we would be able to detect pain versus reality. And as technologists, we implement a lot of pain. Yeah. So I hope that helped.
Yeah, definitely.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Etta. Any other questions out there? Deontay, any more questions for our guest, Etta?
I don't think I have any more. I guess one more would just be, there's a lot of these people in here are veterans coming out of this, they're next gen graduates. So they just went through the entire pretty much system, the entire technical side of the system. And I know a lot of them are trying to feel out, which route that they would want to go. So just to kind of, I guess, reiterate what you already said about, so if you wanted to start out in SPM, strategic portfolio management, you said you would dive into project portfolio management first, and then you would dive into PPM, and then you would dive into what were the
APM.
other things that you said? Yeah, there we go.
So,
APM.
Yeah. So there's the three sorts up there. There's PPM, there's APM, and then there's Agile. But if you're first coming out of training and still trying to navigate the platform, one of my first suggestions is back to the release notes. Get that delta from Rome to Utah and go through the different areas, because the deltas are really quick, and just start to get a feel for, oh, I think I like this. Or maybe, no, I don't like that. Like I would have gone through the HR one and went, I don't like that. So that's not going to be on the list.
Yeah. We
And
actually
I don't like HR. That's okay, because there's
No,
that's
there's
another-
plenty. I'm not saying anything wrong with you.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's like people have to understand. I think early on, there's just so much out there that people think that they have to fall in love with everything, and it's like, no, follow your passion. So if your instinct, your gut's telling you that this is fun and you enjoy it, dive deep. If you're like, this isn't really my thing, don't hate the whole ecosystem. There's other things. Look at a couple other things and like figure it out, because for a lot of people, they think. Here's what I've heard. I can't tell you how many times, Ed, and you're gonna laugh at this. That I thought ServiceNow was like a low-code, no-code tool, right?
Oh,
they
please.
come in through the training, and we introduced them like, hey, we're gonna now have you start working in the ServiceNow ecosystem, or let's get you into the training and see. And they're like, well, I want to code, and I heard that ServiceNow is look. I'm like, who did you hear that from? One.
I don't know who you heard that from, but there are how many percentage of all of the Fortune 500 multi-billion-dollar companies that use ServiceNow is
there
like,
we go.
no, go learn ServiceNow.
And it's just hard because people you have to understand the fundamentals first. You have to understand the foundations first. But I try and assure them, like, there's tons of jobs in this ecosystem. There's tons of opportunity to get your hands dirty, to be writing code, to be implementing technical solutions. And if you want to write lots of code, there are plenty of spots for you to do that. If you want to be doing really cool fit and finish things, our friends over at New Rocket do a bunch of service portals. There's tons of opportunity to use different skills that align with areas of interest. And so I love your idea of going through, figuring out what the platform capabilities are, and just exploring. And don't just hit that first area that's like not your cup of tea and think, oh, this platform isn't for me. I need to go build React components or go learn Vue. And it's like, no, give it a chance. There's a lot out there. It's a wide open space. And I personally have met lots of people in the ServiceNow ecosystem, from the service providers to the folks at ServiceNow. They're just wonderful human beings. Like nearly everyone that I talk to and work with at ServiceNow, they're just amazing. And not every company has that culture.
No, they don't. And even as a partner, because, we were a smaller partner, like I said, we kept trying to get traction, but, in the beginning, I did knowledge, I did that, $50,000 to sit there in the booth all day for people to wave at us as they went by, and realizing it was like, man, that was 50 grand I just chunked up and went out the window. And so there's a balance. But I look back now and I'm grateful for the experience in the ServiceNow ecosystem. Yeah. I know that from a ServiceNow perspective, GlideFast is going to be, my home for at least a couple years. But it's really to get people to understand this is what it is. But it's grown, like I said, so wide. So, back on, Utah is here, get the release notes, like I said, the reason why I said do the roam to Utah is because it will tell you everything that has changed from Rome to Quebec to San Diego, then to Utah, and then get your personal instance and go in and play around with it. And it's really easy. Yeah. I mean, we know that's like, I'm not digging this. Okay, I'm going to check this off.
Yeah. Very
actually, you say export it too. You can take in, up at the top where you say export it in its subcategories, export the whole thing out. It's kind of long, but when you export it out, and then gives you a link back to it, so then you can just click on it and just go do it.
Yeah. And it's so important for people to realize you got to get your hands dirty. Don't just shoot for like, I want to learn what I need to learn so I can pass the certification test, because once I get that cert, I'm going to be in. It's like, no. You got to get into your PDI, your professional developer instance. You got to really put your hands on it, get some practice, understand the solution portion of it. Well, I also want to go back to, I think it's hilarious, although it's like lesson learned. You spent quite a bit for the booth at Knowledge. I'm looking at those tickets, and so for people that are looking at the Knowledge tickets, it ain't cheap to go to be an attendee either. But it's not. But it's one of those indicators, I think, to folks that like, this is an area where industry is spending money. And this is where you as a developer, you want to get a sense of where are people that are spending money in tech? What are they spending the money on? Because that's a signal for you of like job security and opportunity for higher than average wages. Sometimes people get caught up in this, like, I want to go work at a small, scrappy startup. and they don't realize that like enterprise has got some very unique demands. They've got a lot of needs for developers, and they're great environments for you to launch your career, get lots of experience, and be in a little bit more of a comfortable position than, you know, living that, you know, scrappy startup life, right? We all want to go work at Netflix or go, you know, build games at Xbox, but you know, a lot of this enterprise, it's not going anywhere. And these jobs,
Well, and
they're not
ServiceNow
laying
really,
know.
really isn't going anywhere. And you know, back on the piece of knowledge, once you get into a company and you need to go to knowledge, they're going to pay for the whole thing. I will tell you, my first year at even CareFusion, we didn't have any budget, you know, because nobody has any budget mid-year. I spoke at Knowledge 14. That was how I was able to go. So I got my ticket and everything.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I'm going. So, you know, I had Marriott points, you know, and I had Southwest points. And I literally went to Knowledge 14 on, I'm speaking of knowledge. I got some Southwest points for the flight. I got Marriott there. And it changed everything. And when I went back and looked at my presentations for Knowledge 14, Knowledge 15, what happened was then I became a partner and they wouldn't let me speak for whatever reason. Probably because I was spending the $50,000 on the booth and had to sit in the booth. But, and then, you know, when I was working with scripts, I got to do, you know, Knowledge 20. It's like, you find a way to get involved in the ecosystem so that if the company won't allow you to go, you find ways to go. But decide that if this is the ecosystem for you, come join.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're a little over, but I
yes,
have a question.
Oh, yeah, we are. Okay.
I want to be budget conscious because a lot of these folks are trying to figure out a path, and they're doing this this is their new career that they're emerging in on the side hustle. What would be your biggest hack for you know, what's something that people might miss if they're not really, like, you know, if we're not telling them, right? What would be your advice? Is it the learning platform? Is it the PDI? Is it like what would you say is like what's the secret hack that you would share with folks to really make sure they're on the uptake of?
I would say my main one, because back to, I still got to find out what I want to do.
Yeah. Okay.
So back to the release notes.
There you go.
Do that diff in there and figure out which one you want to do. Then you can go to Now Learning and learn.
Yep.
But don't just go in and start taking a bunch of classes on Now Learning and waste your time, because those things are a lot of time. Because some of them are like, you know, days.
Yeah. I like it. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alex. You want to close out? Any final words?
No, I just want to thank you for dropping all this knowledge. I got to go back and actually watch this thing and start taking notes. I want to drop your LinkedIn. So if you have not linked up with her yet, here's her LinkedIn. Please go out there and visit her and please network with her. She is the person to know in the ITBM and SPM space. Thank you so much, Etta Wilson, for joining us. I would love to maybe brainstorm with you, myself, and Deontay about that, you know, path about getting people into ServiceNow. You mentioned you had a playbook in mind, and I would love to brainstorm that with you. So we would definitely reach out. I'm
going to put one more thing out there, and Ed and I have had a conversation about this recently. I am twisting arms. You can't see. I am twisting arms behind the scenes. So if you think you would be interested in gaining some more knowledge from Etta in the form of like a book or a course or something, please drop a comment, send a message to Etta, nudge her in this direction. I would love to work with Etta to help her just bring more of her knowledge to the masses. But I'd love to see you show her that you're interested in more of this. And I think that would help to encourage, you know, my ability to twist that arm and get her to, you know, to do some more of this. We will definitely, for our apprentices, we are definitely brainstorming on some ways that we can help you continue to move into the ecosystem efficiently and find opportunities. We got Groxley. Groxley is going to launch, and it's going to have massive opportunities for people to find partners that are looking for the skill sets that you're going to have in the ServiceNow ecosystem. So, but we're only going to launch it when it's right and we get the right partners on there, and it's going to land people into well-paying jobs. So it's all coming. And so thank you again, Etta. I really appreciate you spending so much time with us.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you so much, folks.
absolutely.
And then I know that just want to just quickly, like I said, shout out the folks that came through from Next Gen. I know I dropped that in there for you guys, and you guys came through. So I just want to say I appreciate you guys for dropping in. Would love to have you guys, drop in and kind of get some time, get some advice, get some knowledge with us every Friday. We'll be doing this 3 p.m. So I would love if you guys, could come in. And just thank you to Etta for coming in and dropping that knowledge. Very, very in-depth knowledge about the platform and different processes. So I love it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to what we're going to do together in the future.
Awesome.
Oh, I'm excited too. Thank you, Etta. Good night, everybody. Everybody have a great weekend. We will see you next Friday.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.